So again, for anybody coming on to join us, we are going to have episode 20 of Voices of Strength, and we're speaking on Santino Trevino today. Just going to give another minute and hello to the people joining us. All right, guys, so I am going to join you guys as well on video. Okay, we had to take care of some technical difficulties, you guys. So we are running a little behind schedule, but we are here, and we are here for episode 20 of our Voices of Strength series. Voices of Strength series, those who have not watched the show before, we highlight a victim of a police killing every week from across the United States, and we featured their families. So we let them come on and share their stories. Many times when people are killed by police, we only hear about a few names. The general public only hears about a few names of those killed by police when there are thousands of people who have been killed by police. So we really get into the stories. We open space for families to come on and share. So today we have Anne with us, and Cortez, and she is Santino's mother. So go ahead and introduce yourself briefly, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay, my name is Dan Cortez, and I'm Santino Trevino's mother, who was killed by LAPD in 6/22 of 2017 by North Hollywood Division in Los Angeles.
Thank you for sharing. So for people that do not know me yet, I'm going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Marissa Barrera, and I started this series, I think it was August. We are on episode 20. We've been doing it each week and with different families. We've hit many different states already as well. And I know personally, her son was killed the same year that my brother was killed in 2017. So my brother was murdered that year. I met a lot of impacted families, and we've just been writing this out together. Lots of different things. Anne has also came down to Sacramento, the capital, out here, and we went to different gatherings and events that we were invited to. So we've got to spend time in person. I want to give a shout out to the other impacted families out there who are watching or who have also been featured on the show. These stories, I know a lot of families repeat the details matter, and that reporters are not familiar with these. Hear us out. So Santino was 20 years old, young man, barely starting his life. What would you like to share with us about him? Just share about your son.
Well, he was a good kid. He never been in trouble in his life, and it doesn't even really matter on that part, because nobody deserves to die, especially just stereotyping somebody, even if they were a person that got in trouble. But he went to school here in Bakersfield, is where he was born and raised. He has 7 other brothers and sisters. He was my 4th baby. He was me and his dad's very first child. And he graduated from Highland High School out here. And he was a very good kid. You know, he always wanted to, work and make money. And he was always one of those kids that, said, he always liked to do things the right way. And that's how he thought, and he took care of, his sisters and brothers when they went to school. And he was just a very good kid. And he always was making people laugh. He always did. He was never unhappy.
Thank you for sharing. How many siblings total was that? And can you share something about maybe his relationship with his siblings and anything else?
Okay. He was my 4th baby, and I had a total of 6 boys, 2 girls, with him included. So it went my 2 boys, then my daughter, and then went him, his 3 other brothers, and then my daughter. So 2 boys, 6 girls, and he was my 4th baby. So, and then he was born in May 3rd, 1997, and he was only able to celebrate his 20 years old for a month before he was killed.
Barely. So sorry, Anne. I'm so sorry. So many, that anybody can be impacted by a police killing. Anybody can. We've seen it. Ages, different areas, different races. Nobody is exempt from it. And when it happens, it doesn't matter who you are. The system is it's not on our side. But gosh, he was so young. I do real quick, let you know, Anne, that people are on here saying hello to you and sharing support. We have some of the Justice families on there and some other families as well. So later on, you can go through the comments. It'll be too hard to go through them right now and keep up with everybody, you guys. But if you guys have questions, put them in there or comments on what we share. And we'll catch up to them later. But thank you guys. And so I think something is in front of your camera. I don't know what that is. Can you see that? Camera in front of your phone, I mean.
Return it.
And yeah.
Is that? Yeah. You want me to? Is that better?
Okay, yeah, because we can't really see you. Someone else.
You want me to turn around the other way, maybe? It'd probably be. Okay, let me see. That's because I'm outside, because it's much quieter out here, to tell you the truth. Okay, how's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's good. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Oh,
wait. Okay.
Anybody has comments and stuff, you guys can just put them in there. We're getting some things in there. But anyways, so let's share a little more about your son. What was he doing at the time? Most 20-year-olds, they're so young, they're just figuring life out.
Well, he had just turned 18 on May 2015. And I guess he, had friends up in Los Angeles. He really, he never really gave me problems. So he would always ask me if he could go see his friends or whatever. And I would let him, because he was very, very good about, being good about things. He came home and he said, so when he turned 18, he said, Mom, I'm going to go, they're going to take me out for my birthday. And so then he came back the next day and he goes, Mom, I'm going to move to Los Angeles. And I said, well, I really didn't want him to go. I really didn't. I told, because I was always like wanting my kids all together all the time, because they were raised with each other all their lives. They were never like separated or nothing. They were always together. So, when he moved to Los Angeles, he had a house that he was living with, but he was like modeling up there at Abercrombie and Fitch. And so he moved in. I guess he had roommates that I really knew nothing about, because, he really never said nothing to me about them, because he was very private, but, he always gave me, good things that he did. So I never really worried, because I always knew that he was very responsible.
So he moved. And you guys are originally from so he was from Bakersfield, but
yes,
a young man, modeling, working, wanting to move out there on the scene, right? And he was getting into modeling. It's a good spot to be.
Yeah, he
Okay.
was like, he wanted to like work in Hollywood because, you know, he'd always hear like movie star stuff, and he always thought, you know, glamour and money, and that's all he wanted to do. He wanted to work, he wanted to do things legitimately, and he wanted to be somebody, is what he would say. He goes, you know, in order to get there, you got to, you know, strive for it. So he would always tell me that. So when he moved, I knew that he wanted to work, and that's all that I'm thinking this whole time, you know. And he just got involved with two very bad people, you know.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And for people that don't know your son's story, I want to back up a little bit and just kind of highlight what I had. Your son was shot, over 150 shots at him, unarmed.
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
extreme. Very one of the, you know, people get shot. Anybody getting killed is horrific, but like that is just like a fire squad overkill. These things, it happens. It happened to your son. And if at any point, you know, you want to redirect anything, just let me know, Anne, okay? But
Okay.
it's important for people to know how extreme and what really happened to him. And then that the officers were later justified, right?
They they got to go back to work the next, never been in trouble, reprimanded, nothing. They've been working since, you know, and it's been horrific because he's moved to another residence, and I guess, you know, when he was living out there, he actually would get in arguments, you know, with his roommates, because his roommate that he lived with, they were always doing really foul stuff. So he would, you know, always tell me, Mom, I'm gonna move out of here. And so he told me, you know, come and get me. And so I was gonna go and get him. And then he told me, never mind. But he had told my ex-husband if he could come get him. And he said, yeah, he would go and get him. But he would change his mind because I think he would get worried a lot, you know. So, you know, he's living out there. And I mean, when they shot him, they shot him so many times. I mean, you could see it, they said on television, I guess, because they didn't have no body cams. None of the officers, not one of them, had body cams. And when they called me from the precinct, they called me from some department on a Saturday to tell me that they didn't have no body cams because they weren't funded. Not 50 of them were funded
Wow.
for body cams. So they shot him, and out of that, he got 76 of them. And they were there. Every single one was fatal wounds, because when I was, you know, reading the coroner's report and the autopsy, they were all mostly fatal wounds. I mean, you imagine, you know what I mean? And my poor little guy was a little organ donor. He always would tell me, he's all, Mom, if I die, you know, you could always get my organs. And there was nothing that they could do with his organs, they said.
And so 12 officers
Yes.
involved.
Yes. And 12 officers was what hit him out of the 50, because they showed up to his house like drawn on him, but he called them and asked them for help. He said, you know, he wanted to be escorted to his apartment to get his stuff. And who told me this was the detective himself that called me initially from the department and said, you know,
You're breaking up on my, it's
um, he had asked for.
maybe Facebook could tell me. Can you guys hear her? Or is it me? Anne, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Okay, I think I don't know what happened, but I didn't hear you for a little bit. So I don't know if that was on my
Okay.
or your end.
Okay, I couldn't hear you.
Okay, so we are cutting out for a minute.
Okay.
No.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, Facebook said we were cutting out for a minute as well. So
Okay.
there's so many in here. Okay. I'm sorry about that. But so I don't know exactly where I lost you, but right before I lost you, I
Okay.
know you were basically what we were saying. We were saying, and just for anybody who may have missed this as well, your son he moved out, he moved to that area, and then he had roommates, some kind of beefs, dramas going on with the roommates at some point. They were doing some things that were causing some issues. And then
Right.
that's what prompted that call that your son actually called the police to help him, correct?
Right. And then they switched it all around at the end and they said that it was the roommate. So from the beginning, the detective is the one that told me that my son was the one that called for help. So see, like, them switching over the story and still getting away with it and knowing that they told me directly myself. I mean, that's, misconduct all around, no matter what, because I mean, they straight up lied. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I really don't never know what's the truth. The only reason why there was any kind of camera footage was because of all the neighbors. The neighbors were running for cover because they said that bullets were going everywhere, that they were even feared for their lives because they were going everywhere. And so they filmed it, and that's the only coverage they had. But they had all kinds of lights on him. It was like 11:30 at night on that evening time. The lights were all on his eyes and all the officers' eyes. So for them to even think that anybody had anything in their hand, they couldn't tell anyways because the lights were, they couldn't see the front of their hands if they tried. And that's what so many of the neighbors have said and everything about that story. The neighbor next door was his roommate. Now, his neighbor next door was his landlord, I'm sorry. And she was the only one that was out there, and she's been not able to speak ever again.
Wow.
She's never spoke since that day. It made her, it got to her. She's never been able to even be normal after that.
My goodness. And so this was at an apartment complex too. So there are people right there next to his
Yes.
apartment. So reckless. And then someone, I think Lori Valdez mentioned in here, and 150 shots to
Yes.
your unarmed young son as a young man, and still didn't get the coverage that it deserved.
No. And he was, when they were shooting from the ground to his fourth floor apartment and from the apartment out. So he had no kind of way of being able to even try to even get away. I mean, he was even running that he was trying to run towards the sliding glass window, and he ended up on the patio, hanging for almost a whole day without being covered, for the whole world to see him like that. And they didn't even really care. They called me like with no kind of like heart. And they waited almost 2 days to call me. They said that the roommate had said I was deceased, and I wasn't deceased. They called his uncle in Texas, and that's how they found me, because the roommate was very well aware that I was alive because I would call my son, and he knows this. So that's why when he went and told them that I was, deceased, that didn't make sense to me. I said, how are you guys going to think that I'm deceased? How would you guys not even look up records? I mean, he wasn't his father's kid. You know what I mean? You guys sure did know that they.
I think we're losing you again.
Was I at when I told you last?
I think we lost you for a little bit there again, the connection.
Okay.
So I didn't hear like the last couple of sentences.
Well, when I had told them that I was deceased, when they were looking for the next of kin, and they got a hold of his uncle in Texas, and his uncle in Texas is like, no, his mother's very much alive, in which his roommate knew I was alive. He just did it just to say it. There was no reason for that. So, when they got a hold of me, it was on a Saturday. And they had told the first, officer that had called me, it was a detective. He's told me that, that he didn't understand what was going on and what happened. He was actually one of the cops that were probably not like them yet, but eventually they do turn like them, but he was one of those ones tells me, he's like, your son had a clean slate. I'm very confused with all this. He goes, I really don't know why this happened. He goes, because none of it made sense. So then the following weekend, another detective had called me, and he was like, well, you know what? He shouldn't be, telling you anything like that. He goes, because that's not true. And he was like really mad about it, and he had asked me which detective it was, and I told him, but he was like really upset with it. And on top of it, my mom went into a coma. she died. You know, we had 2 funerals in 1 week. We had called her from the precinct. They told her, you know, they were kind of going around her, you know, trying to ask her if she could explain, you know, like if where was I at or was I deceased, you know, sorry, the phone. And she said, she goes, my daughter's not deceased. My daughter's very much alive. And so she got a hold of me and she got me.
I'm sorry. They said we kind of lost you for a quick second. So I want people to hear exactly what you said, that you lost your mother. Your mother passed away a week, right? After she heard of the loss, how her grandson was killed.
She went into a coma 72 hours after they had called her from the department up in Los Angeles and the coroner's office. I guess they had been calling her and she had a house phone. So I guess it was coming up private. So then they actually had, you know, they took the block off of their phone. I guess the coroners did. She saw the caller ID and she already knew something was wrong because she felt something. So she called me up to tell me. And when she picked me up the next day after we went to go and make funeral arrangements that evening, she was driving. She was having a stroke while she was driving, taking me down to the funeral care. And she had a stroke right there in the middle of, you know, us driving. And she ended up dying 10 days after my son. And we had 2 funerals in 1 week, my son's and my mother's. So let me tell you, if it says that it doesn't just take you know, doesn't break anybody's heart, it breaks everybody's heart. It takes a whole family, you know, because she left. She didn't, you know, I didn't even expect that. You know, I didn't expect my son to die, but I mean, the both of them to die in so quickly, and like a thief in the night is how it felt, you know?
Gosh, I'm so sorry. That's so much pain on the family. Just these murders. It's so much pain. And she's not the first family I've heard of that has passed shortly after the news. I've seen mothers pass, and you know, people do die of from this. It causes so much pain and suffering.
She just asked me like one thing. She just said, she goes, Mija, I just want you to just fight for your son. She goes, I'll take care of him. She goes, I'll take care of baby Tino. I really didn't understand what she meant, you know, when she was telling me. She was driving, having a stroke the whole time that we were on our way to go and finish our arrangements at the funeral care. Because she goes, we got to go make arrangements. She told me the night before. So as soon as they had called me from the precinct, we were on our way to the funeral care because it was a family friend. So we did things right away, you know what I mean? And we wanted to go and pick him up. And I told them, I said, I don't want him there no more, you know? And the lady from the department, when they called me that day, she tells me, we're a department inside of the precinct that helps people with their family members that have died from police killings. And I said, how are you going to tell me you're that kind of a department you work in the same building as them? I go, you're going to tell me you're on my side, that you're here to give me counseling, and that whatever I need, that you guys are here for me? I said, where's the body cams? And she said, I'm sorry, hun. She goes, unfortunately, they were not funded on that particular shift, is what she told me.
Bullshit. Wow.
50 of them did not have no body cams. I go, really? I go, Bakersfield's probably, you know, we're probably less, you know, more than, you know, you guys are better off than we are in Bakersfield. You know what I mean? You guys don't have them, but we do. That doesn't make sense, you know? I come to find out, yeah, there was body cams, but you know what? They shut them off and they put them on and shut them off and put them on, is what I'm hearing. You know, they just did it to where, you know, it makes my son look like the bad guy versus, you know, them look like the good guys. How are you going to go out to somebody's apartment complex, one person, and he's the one that calls you to ask you for help? You're going to shoot him dead. You guys are going to go out there like he's in Afghanistan, you know what I mean? And I don't even think that they would even do that. One person, he had his cell phone in his hand, and they shot his cell phone into his hand. And you know what? He was probably trying to film them, or he was probably trying to call. I don't know what was going on, but I mean, I feel like all these other things that were going on, because when I hear other stories, there's so much similarities, so many of the same things that they do. And it's the same thing. I feared for my life, or you know what? He had a gun. I thought it was a gun. I mean, they thought it was everything. You know what I mean? Like, what do you not think?
Anything. They just blame anything to be a gun. They'll just, it's just at this point, we already know that no matter what, they're going to say gun, weapon, and then they're going to find whatever it is that's around or that they can plant and use
That's
that.
what they do.
We know how this works. So I want for people, we do have impacted families that watch this show, and a lot of them have told me that it helps them to speak about it, to share, to relate, to learn from other cases. So that's one of the purposes of this show. And the other flip side of it is that for supporters and people who don't know yet, people who are not aware of the truths behind our loved ones' killings. And so for those people, because impacted families, we know how this feels. For the other people, I want you guys to think about a 20-year-old, maybe how you were when you were 20 years old, or if you know a 20-year-old right now. And imagine just how scared this young man must have been in those moments. And even a grown person would be the same scared, but this is a young man, barely out of school, barely starting his adult life. And just how scared he was in those moments leading up, thinking he's calling the police to help him to be murdered that way. Shooting into the 4th floor. What the hell were those pigs doing?
I mean, they had AR-15s with scopes. I mean, they were firing inside of them, you know, inside of the apartment. I mean, how close range were they at both? You know what I mean? I mean, he really had no chance. He did it, you know? And it's so sad because, you know what, it's not just my child, it's everybody's family member that's out there. Like you, Marissa, you're like what my kids are. You're, you know, you're the sister, just like my kids are to my son. And I'm like your mother, you know what I mean? So you know exactly where my kids are at. You know exactly where your mom's at. You know exactly where I'm at and my kids, because we all do. It doesn't matter if it was your uncle, cousin, sister, brother, whatever. The way that they do these things is so horrific, really honestly, that it affects a whole family. And it doesn't even matter if it's your sister, your brother, your cousin, your uncle, however they do it, it's very traumatizing. Husbands, they do it in different manners. They choke them, they shoot them, they beat them, they do whatever they can in their own way to kill them. You know, I don't understand, why would they, you know, want to kill somebody? I thought that we preserve human life. I thought that that's what life is about, you know?
Yeah, this is, you know, people might not believe this stuff. They don't want to believe it, that this is really happening, but it's happening every day. Thank you for coming on and wanting and being willing to share. I know it's not easy to speak. I speak to new families. I know you speak to a lot of families, but
Right.
I know some mothers, and I know it was hard for you to start talking, you know, just to start sharing more. And I've seen you.
I stay away as much as I can because it's so hard for me, you know, and I get on it, but I see you guys all give me my strength, you know, because like I went to Portland, Oregon, you know, and I was out there, and my ladies and my fellow, you know, men out there, they're like, you know, they give me that support out there. And, you know, in Sacramento, when we all went out there, the same thing, you know what I mean? You guys come out here and it's the same thing. I feel like, okay, this is what it's about, because like I can't even talk to anybody else that has never been through this, because when I try to tell them, they're like, oh yeah, you know, or get over it, or you know, it's a long time now, Anne, you know, it's time for you to, you know, move on. I don't know if anybody could ever move on, because I know I haven't been able to move on. There's a big piece of me missing, you know what I mean? And it's a big piece of my kids, you know, life missing, and they've never been the same. His birthday's coming up, and we always go out there to the bluffs, and we set off balloons because he liked to hike. He used to hike 3 times a day in Hollywood. He was very fit, and that was his thing. You know, he always wanted to have his body, and he was very fit. From the picture, you guys can tell.
Mm-hmm.
And he, you know, and so that was the thing. And you know, I've had, you know, there's like, you know, I don't know if anybody knows about it, but there's one lady that her son, one of the officers, his name was Tommy Zizzo, and her name is Erica Jane. She's Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. That's her son. And her husband right now are on being sued by, I guess, somewhere in Beverly Hills, because her husband's a big time Beverly Hills lawyer out there, and he had some families that were, you know, willing to use him as a lawyer, and he embezzled their money to pay him and his wife's money off, that their debts were that he had for her. And so he really, really screwed over a lot of families out there also. So see, people need to know these things because they smear our family members, they smear our people by telling him, oh, this is what he did. Well, you know what? Let me tell you something about his mother and him. They're not so great. You know what I mean? Because you guys want to be like that. Well, I'm going to put it out there like that. I have no reason to be ashamed of it because everybody knows it. You know what I mean? But
I
her
think
son was one of the ones, my son, and he's one of the ones that,
I
I mean, that
think
was my
you're
child, you know?
again. Are you there, Anne?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it was breaking up a little bit again. But I want to so make it clear for the audience that
Okay.
so one of the shooters, one of the officers who shot your son is son to a wealthy and known Hollywood actress, correct?
Correct.
And that must be nice. I'm sure that's helpful to people that do wrongdoings to have someone in power like that.
Oh yeah, they do awful things all day long, her and her husband. Now he has dementia out the blue, but you know what? Hey, if he has it, he has it. But the problem that we're having with it is that they embezzle money from very, very innocent families, family members. He's promising them this amount. He only gives them this amount and uses the rest to pay off their bills. And so they caught on to them. But that's how much of a great mother and great stepfather he is to a son that's the police officer that killed my son. But that's what, we have running the streets out there in Los Angeles.
Gosh, and I want to just say again, these officers they just went back to work, normal routine.
Yes, they did.
They did not have any type of consequences, nothing.
Nothing. They went back to work the next day. Been at work since.
And the other people who are aware, they know that this is the normal routine when police kill. And this is why people are so angry. This is why the families are pissed off. And we're tired of seeing it. We're seeing new killings every day.
I mean, their babies are killed. Toddlers are killed. I mean, 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds. I mean, really, honestly, they say, oh, he came out with me with a knife. I mean, really, is a knife really going to hurt you? I mean, you guys have guns. You know what I mean? You guys couldn't do, I mean, they even tased my son after, is what I was told. After they handcuffed him and they tased him after he was already gone. I mean, what you guys want to make sure? I mean, I don't understand that.
And that's another one of those things, guys, that they do handcuff. They know our loved ones are dead because they fucking blasted them or they choke them to death. They know that they're dead and they still go and handcuff them, dehumanize them further. Oftentimes they do weird things to the bodies too. And
yes, they do.
We can't make this stuff up. It's real life. Many families have found out the truth. Let's go back to the first narrative that they released about your son. When I was preparing the flyer, just making sure the information I got was correct, as dates, things like that. I always look up people's names, a Google search. Not that I take the articles into account because I read them, but I read them knowing that these were the first narratives out there.
Right.
Also the lies that were put out there on our loved ones. And I read what they said. They said your son, like you mentioned earlier, they didn't say that he was the one calling police for help. They said that the roommate called for help, that he was the one that was getting called on. They flipped it to make your son seem like he was the suspect or whatever. And even if he was, it wouldn't matter. They tried to say that he had a gun and that he brandished it. He showed it to the officers. They'd never correct themselves either. So was anything else that I missed? I mean, they lied. They didn't fix it.
No, and they left the articles like that, and they never come back on, onto, the news, or they never go back onto the, the newspaper to tell them, hey, you know what, we have a correction on this. They never have done it because, I mean, the detective himself is the one that told me, your son's the one that called, for help. So they changed the whole thing. And I thought to myself, they must have really did some really quick thinking when, after they killed him the way they did, they're like, okay, this is what we got to do. Because, I mean, they obviously didn't have no body cams. So they knew that there's no body cams. Oh, there's so much they could get away with without a body cams. I mean, they get away with it even if they have body cams.
Yep.
I mean,
Body cams, even if it's recorded, even if there's witnesses, they get away with it. Goodness.
They've never really, tried to fix anything like about it. I mean, the only thing is what they told me, word for word. They said, he's the one that called and things like that. So that's about the only part that I know that they told me themselves. I mean, they can't lie to me because I know exactly what they told me.
And so how long did it take?
As far as roommate,
I think you're cutting out again.
He tells me, okay, they're saying the roommate called,
Cutting out again.
I know. I seen that. I was trying to get it to. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, they've changed the story so many times. Anyways, it doesn't even really matter. Whatever it seems like, whatever they say, it stands. I mean, whether they tell me one story in the beginning and they tell me one story in the middle, no matter what they tell me, they always have some kind of, like, no matter what, they protect them. Yeah. They always do. And they've told me tons of different stories.
When was it that how long was it, years, or what was the amount of time before you found out more of the true story?
Probably in the last 9 months, to be honest with you, because I mean, I've looked and I've found it, and I found out things here and there, little by little. And I mean, I did my own investigating, I mean, every day I try to find something, no matter what, I continue to keep trying to find something. And one day I get onto his Google Play, and it shows him leaving a message for somebody to help him. And I found it just not too long ago. He's asking somebody to help him out there because he's, somebody's trying to do something to him. Well, I'll just tell you, a year before he died, he told my ex-husband, he said, if I die, he goes, my roommates are responsible. See, so the roommates, I'm positive, you know what, I really know this deep down inside that his roommates are very well connected with the police. For them to go out there on a routine call to his house, it was just a routine call, like, hey, can you come out here because, me and my roommate are arguing. Not a 911 call. It was a routine call. They went out there drawn on him. So for them to go out there like that, there's no way in heck you cannot tell me that they're not connected at all. You can tell.
Gosh. So again, 12 officers that shot, and then over 50 officers that arrived on scene.
50 is what showed up to his apartment. That's what I was told. 50 officers showed up, and all of them is what hit him. There was even the helicopter up in the air also.
Wow. And so do you know anything further about the roommate? Have you ever been able to speak to him? Anything like that you're able to share? Or has that been a dead end? I ask this because one thing that we speak about a lot is how families mentioned it. We have to be our own investigators. So how's that process been going?
Well, with the roommate, he was the one that wanted to get a hold of me for a while, and I was like, I didn't want to talk to him because he made me sick. You know what I mean? I was like, you know what? I'm going to listen to his part of it, and he's over here telling me about the, the cops. He's like, they did your son crappy. He's all, what they did to him is wrong. He goes, I'll vouch for you. I'll tell you, they came out here. He goes, you know what? And he didn't even do nothing wrong. He's telling me this stuff, So, I'm like, okay, so then why did this happen? Basically, I think he's just trying to be both sides, on their side and on my side, but I wasn't buying it. But basically is what he told me. I never heard from him anymore, but, he called me for a long time, and, and I would call him because I wanted to know what was going on, of course, And I don't think nobody lives in an apartment no more, except I think they have a new landlord. So when we went up to LA one time, it was probably you were there when it was me and you and all of us went up to Chuco's. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And me, you, and okay, well, me and Lulu and all of us went to my son's apartment for the very first time.
I remember.
I never have been up there, so that was my very first time up there, and I went to go and see, the place that he was, killed at, and I looked around, and even like the neighbors had told me, they said, he was a very good kid. I talked to them, and they said he was very well mannered. They said he wasn't a loud person. He was always real sweet to everybody. So I said, but they said, he just ended up with some really bad people.
My goodness. Yeah. So I remember that trip. That was a couple years. I had just had baby Michael, and
Yes.
I remember the ladies taking you out there. I thought that was I don't know if they're on still, but I know they were on at some point. I thought that was I want to point this out because it's important for the impacted families, the justice families. I want to point out we're the ones supporting each other, and those other grieving family members took you to that spot, and it just
right.
We need to continue doing that for each other because ain't nobody else really supporting us as impacted family members, and definitely other people do not understand. So
right.
That's great at that part. And I want to talk about that trip really quick. That's when we went to LA, and we got there basically with Soft, and
we went to a candlelight vigil for Cesar Rodriguez.
Yeah. So this trip, it was bringing impacted family members together in California. Some of the families came down to LA, and it was really time for the families to bond. We did different things, different workshops, and ate together and just spent some time. So things like that, it's good. It's good for the families. I see families gaining strength from each other, sharing their stories, being able to relate, and being able.
Who took us over there was wasn't it Emilio and Ellie and Kim? They were the ones that we went to their Chuco Center, remember?
Yeah. Justice. Yeah. So shout out to all of those guys that helped put that together. Jesse, everybody
Jesse
who went.
and Letty and all of them. Yes, I love them all. I mean, I swear, like, I think that I've known them all my life, and and I've barely known them a short time, and like I can't even say that I could call anybody in the middle of the night the way that I can call all of you guys. I can call you guys at any time, and you guys are like right there. And just like when I went to go see my son, I mean, I had Barbara, I had Leticia Brown and her cousin, and I had Lulu, and we all went up there. Yeah, and they were up there with me with full on wholeheartedly. I have Valerie Rivera. She helps me out there in Los Angeles because her son also. And I have, Barbara Okamoto. She does the same thing for me out there as I do for her and Tammy out here. I mean, we support each other very much. And it's sad that we have to live this life, that we're going to be like this for the rest of our life, you guys, because I don't think I could ever go any other way ever again. I don't think I could ever forget about nobody.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. The ladies are on right now, so that's pretty cool. That's something that I wanted to start Voices of Strength for, is that it's the families are the ones supporting each other and helping each other through the cases, whatever it is. I spoke to multiple impacted family members yesterday, even alone, and just providing just that shoulder. So sometimes it's all we can offer, but it helps.
I know, and I do the same thing. Like, when I need like some advice, I'm like, okay, I'm like, Lulu, can you ask your sister, or Marie, can you ask Lulu, or or maybe I'll just ask Marissa. I go around thinking all these things because I try to think of all the similarities and like who can actually give me some like good feedback. I think I used to call Jesse all the time for everything. You know what I mean? Because I was like, Jesse, what do I do? You know what I mean? Because I love them so much. I feel like they're like my brothers and my sisters, and that's how I feel.
I think you're breaking up again.
Oh,
okay.
Am I on here yet?
Yeah, you're good. I think, it's because, we can hear you now. But yeah, I think just highlighting
But I
again,
just want to know, like, I just want uh-huh.
no, just highlighting the families support each other. Go ahead.
Oh no, you know what, I think we can, but no, what I was, that's just my bottom line. I mean, if we have a, some kind of like feud or whatever, forget about it, because we all need each other. We're the only ones that really can depend on each other, because somebody that's outside of this world that we are in right now don't really even understand it and don't want to understand it. So
Yeah.
instead of, I only go to my impacted families because nobody else understands what I'm feeling, inside, and we had a candlelight vigil here in Bakersfield the other night. And oh my gosh, I mean, I was so excited to see them, because, you feel like this big, family bond, and they're out there and they love each other. And it's like, I don't know where else to go, but I wouldn't want to go anywhere else. Just all of us alone, you know what I mean? Because we only know what we're going through at that moment. We're all going through the exact same thing that every single other person has gone through at that same time frame.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel for your mom. I love your mother. Oh man, your dad, he's awesome too. You know what I mean? All of them. I mean, my Sandy Sanchez, her too. You know what I mean? She's another one. She went to Portland. She went and picked me up from the bus station. I mean, that's how much of a bond all of us have.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys made that trip out there, and the families getting together. It's important, and it's important. It's not only happening to protest or to be out there, like when we're like fighting, that we're also just doing other things together as well. And working collectively. We need the families leading the way. And so we did get started a little late, but we're almost at about an hour. So is there anything that we didn't talk about that we wanted to share? I think she may be breaking up again, but I think you guys can still hear me. So I did set up to have the families come on and share your responses to the guilty verdict, the recent guilty verdict, the high profile case of George Floyd's murder. So families, if you guys still want to come, I think she might have.
Okay.
Oh, it said you left and then I seen you again.
Oh no, I didn't leave nowhere. I won't leave the meeting until you tell me to go.
Yeah, no, I was asking if there was anything else you wanted to share before. So after we finish this, I'm opening space for impacted families to share their response to the guilty verdict. Okay. And so, yeah, you're welcome to share too. But I just want to, before we start that, and for the families watching that want to come on, if I haven't sent you guys a link, I'm going to be posting it in the comments. So people could come on live and share their responses. But I want to first, is there anything else you would like to share with the audience, and how can people support you and Santino's case and everything?
You know what? Yeah, they've all, you guys have all, like, left go in. And when I go to trial, which starts in July, because I'm like not with none of that other stuff. With me, I'm like, what, I want conviction. And even if I didn't get conviction, I'll tell you this, I'd rather, leave, losing with dignity and without even, caring about it, than to go in there and be like all right with everything, because that's just my heart. But with everybody else, just, if you just, when it's time for me to go to court, I want you guys to go out there and freaking yell and scream, just like I would do for you guys, because it makes me feel good. You know what I mean? That somebody cares. And that you guys have all been supportive. You guys are all great, and love you guys very much.
No, that's awesome. So court support, that's something that families need. That's something that's been spoken on previous episodes. Court support, when families go to trial, they need support. So when the time comes, you just start letting everybody know. And I'm sure a lot of people will go out there and support. Just let me know, and we'll figure some things out. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get this closed up. And okay. So the responses to the George Floyd, I'm doing that on a separate Zoom, because I provided that link, but I'll send it to you too if you want to come back and share your response.
Okay. I mean, I
Or
can
do
tell you right now if you want me
yeah,
to. I don't want to.
yeah,
Okay. You know what? I'm glad for, the verdict. I just, I worry about what's going to happen as far as like what they're going to give him as far as a sentence, because, we know in the past how things go, but I hope that he gets a sentence that he is very well deserved. Yes, what he did to him was very wrong. He did not deserve that. And that's, and it just shows you that it took innocent bystanders walking by to record it, because nobody else was going to have their body cams on, obviously, to show it. So
yeah.
shout out to all them people out there that did all that, because that I commend them. And I'm glad that they came up with it, because you know what, he did not deserve that. Nobody deserves none of that. If somebody does a crime, okay, you're gonna go and you're gonna do that. No, usually they handcuff him, because he really wasn't resisting. I mean, it didn't look like it to me. I didn't see him doing anything wrong. He basically he didn't have a choice really. But I'm glad that they convicted him, and I hope he gets it to where he's never going to come out ever again. And I'm sorry, that's just how I feel, because he does deserve to be behind bars, and not just because George Floyd's family doesn't get to be with their son and their loved one.
Thank you for sharing your response. And absolutely highlight that you mentioned the people that recorded. Anybody could be a cop watcher, anybody could cop watch, anybody. We have the right to film the police, and it's our duty when we see police interacting with any individual, and they can't do anything, and we have a right to do that. I know if I ever see people getting pulled over, I always slow down, try to record, let the officers know that they're being watched too. So
oh yeah, you're so welcome, Marissa. Thank you for having me on here today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And we're here. We're gonna keep pushing together with you, and we're gonna be old here together still.
I know this. And you know what? I have no problem with it, because I couldn't ask for a better set of people throughout the nation. Really, honestly, I've had the best.
Yeah, some really great families out there. Great families.
Yes, there is.
Okay. All right. And thank you so much for being here with us. And then for any families watching that want to come on and share your live response, I just posted a link. If you don't have the link, just ask me for it and I'll send it to you right now. But I'm inviting families to share their live response. With that, you guys can also share your loved one's name and some just a quick something about them that you guys want people to know. As an impacted family, our voices need to be amplified, and we are the survivors here that have experienced this. So people need to listen up. And thank you again. Anybody that wants to join us, I'll see you guys in a few minutes.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great. Bye.
Thank you, Marissa.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Okay, you too. See you later.